Howdy, YouTubers. We're on another live feed here in Oregon. Of course, one of the people that I came here to help find was found, thank goodness. People go missing all the time. If you don't get involved, get actively involved, they stay missing in many cases. A lot of times, the difference between somebody being found and them ending up in a ditch or worse is whether or not you're paying attention to your surroundings. When you go into Walmart and you see that billboard with those missing people on it, do you actually take a look at that billboard? Do you actually look at those faces and those people? Human trafficking in the United States is a very real thing. Now, right now, there's a young woman who has had to deal with this. She's had to deal with it within her family. She's had to deal with it with the homeless community. She's had to deal with the whole druggy mindset. She has to deal with all of these things that I speak out about. Now, right now, she's having a mental breakdown. I mean, she's surrounded by tweakers. She doesn't get any sleep at night, and her tent is leaking. So she's got newspapers that she's putting down. So those newspapers are starting to absorb the moisture, and she just puts more newspaper down every night. And that stuff is unhealthy. It's going to start molding. It's going to start getting mildew in it. It's already unhealthy. And a lot of people are living that. Right now, I've been messaging with Rebecca, and God, she has so much hate and anger. She just wants to hurt these people. And that's what she's been texting, and that's what she's been typing. And she's letting me know this morning that she's basically just spent the morning yelling at anybody who walks by. She's telling me that she's going to stay in this mindset. Her friend Harold, who is her safety network, he's not willing to help her. So now she's in an unsafe situation. Before she's going to be able to function to do anything else, we need to take care of the bottom tier of the ladder. It's called Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Now, at the very bottom of that pyramid, what we've got is your basic needs, your life sustaining needs: food, water, shelter. This is what you need. After that, you have to worry about your safety. That's the next one up on the ladder. Now, there's a lot of other stuff in Maslow's hierarchy of needs, but you don't get to work on any of the stuff higher up on the ladder when you're not taking care of your basic necessities. If you do not have the ability to get food readily available, you're going to be on the search and on the hunt for food. Now, then we've also got, and I might have to pause for a minute and say, I know this is not what the video is supposed to be about, and we will get to what the video is supposed to be about, the title of it and everything. But right now, the situation with Rebecca, she's going to have a mental breakdown. She is going to have a complete and total friggin' breakdown. That's different from having a meltdown. A meltdown is complete and total fear. She's got too much rage to feel that fear right now. She's having a mental breakdown, and she's, especially since her safety and support, her road dog, Harold, you know, that's a kick to the fucking teeth. That's her safety network. That's all that she's got around here, and he's not going to help her. I'm not down with a lot of the stuff that she's threatening these people with. I mean, for me, I threatened my predators back, and I only threatened them with what they threatened me with. And not even that bad. In most of these cases, I threatened them with the nicest things that they threatened me with. I threatened to take these people to court over and over and over again, to court, while they were threatening to kill me, while they were threatening to kill my family. For over a year before Natalie was killed, they did these things. Now, did I ever actually threaten anyone back? Yes, I absolutely did. But it took well over a year for me to do that. And I did it loud and proud. I didn't try making 10,000 fake accounts or typing it just in Messenger and then deleting it. I didn't have to do those things because I wasn't the one trying to manipulate or misrepresent the situation. Now, with Rebecca, I want to help her. I'm not going to help her with the whole threatening to kill people thing. That's insane. I'm not going to go vigilante justice these people. Absolutely not. That'd get me locked up. It'd get her locked up. It won't do a goddamn thing about the predators. They will still walk. Her predators will still walk. People like Thomas Shipley will still walk. She just keeps typing she's done. She's going to do horrible this and horrible that to people. And God, that's not how I do things. When I threatened people, it's because nothing else worked. It's because going to the police didn't work. I got blown off. Going to my friends did not work. I got blown off. These are the things you're not supposed to do. You're not supposed to say. When somebody comes to you and is telling you about their abuse, they need help turning it in. That's why they're coming to you. They are specifically coming to you for help stopping the abuse. Obviously, it is ongoing, or they wouldn't need help stopping it. But you're not even willing to hear what they have to say. You're too busy saying those things you're not supposed to say to a survivor. You just need to move on. You just need to forget about it. Let's see. Rebecca typed, "It doesn't matter. Jim Coich had a gun to my head at 3, forcing me to rape my own mom. It doesn't matter to Tom Shipley had me in an attic, starving me and raped me with a dog." And mind you, these things do happen. You have no idea how serious the sexual deviancy in the United States really is. Now, with every part of her story that she is able to show is true, that she is able to verify is telling the truth about, the more it lends ear to the shit that she's been through. Whereas most people are going to brush this off outright and say, oh, people wouldn't do that. Really, that's like saying police wouldn't rape mentally ill people. Guess what? Adams County. The year after Natalie was killed, that exact thing happened from an Adams County deputy. That's the county that Natalie Bollinger was killed in. And an Adams County deputy who was supposed to be taking a woman from the hospital to her house raped that woman on the hood of his vehicle. Don't tell me they can't. They can. They do. Lucky for that woman, that officer recorded himself with his own dash cam. Sure, you can turn off the body cam. You can't turn off the dash cam, apparently. He was a 27-year veteran of the Adams County Sheriff's Department. 27 years. How many people did he do that to in 27 years? How many of them were too afraid to come forward, especially since he had a badge? I've known a few women who were raped at gunpoint. None of them were raped at gunpoint by a stranger. Not one. All of them, it was someone that they knew. And it was usually to force them to do something with someone else. If you want someone that you can victimize, you want to find somebody who's by themselves. But if you want to force people to do evil things to each other, well, that's where you need a handgun to go do horrible things to each other. If you're going to go assassinate somebody, you don't use a rifle. Pistols are not meant for hunting. If you're going to ban quote unquote assault rifles, those don't need to be fucking made illegal. Handguns are what's specifically designed specifically for killing people. Doesn't matter. I survived Boulder and Becker. It doesn't matter. I survived Hawaii and Talbert Lumho. It doesn't matter if the people here ignore all that so they can be okay. See, she wants me to verify this stuff to some homeless people that weren't there so that they'll accept her instead of treating her like she's crazy. In this, she's talking about how most of the victims of stuff like this are on meds. They drug the shit out of us. You goddamn right they do. Now, nobody forced me to have sex with my own mom at gunpoint. Nobody ever forced me to do messed up stuff like that at gunpoint. Obviously, I've never had sex with my mother. That's rather fucking gross. But some people are sick. One guy, he hated his ex-girlfriend so much, he was talking about holding her at gunpoint and making her do stuff with somebody else that she was related to. And after what he'd been through with the custody battle and all that stuff, it's no wonder why he was that pissed off. And obviously he didn't go through with it. But at the same time, like that's some next level fucked up shit. That is some totally warped, misguided, fucked up in the head shit. And of course, what does she do? What is she doing about this situation? Well, she tried asking nicely. She tried going to these people and saying, hey, I need help. But, well, most of the homeless people, they're just going to watch. Kind of like when you say, well, you watch my bag. You got to go to a job interview. You ask a homeless person to watch your bag. Well, yeah, they'll watch it. They'll watch the police walk off with it. So now that we're 13 minutes in, let's get to what this video is actually about. I was watching BB Rexa, but we'll go to the one that says your channel, my channel, obviously. And we'll read the title of it. Cops, courts, jails, hospitals, abusive protocol, and why going in with the victim is important. Now, I'm going to cite examples from my situation. Each one of these people has rules and regulations that help complement the other portions. For example, public pretenders don't want to do their job. In each and every one of these protocol situations, there are two sets of protocol. One of those sets of protocol is how you treat someone when they go in by themselves. The other set of protocol is how you treat someone when they come in with a parent or guardian or witness. An actual witness there and present. Now, the protocol for the cops, for example, and then you've got the public pretenders who don't want to do their jobs. If the public pretenders don't want to do their jobs, those cops are going to get away with the crimes that they committed. Now, the fact that you have court over something that literally the cops committed crimes against you, in order to get this court against you, in order to make sure that you have a court date, in order to make sure that your rights are taken away. And your public pretender is telling you, oh, well, we're not allowed to show anything the cops didn't collect. Well, maybe you should collect their body cameras. And of course, as soon as I asked for that and pushed that, that's when they dropped charges every single time without fail. I want the body cameras. Repeatedly, they charged me with crimes that were not committed and tried to create a scenario where it was their word versus mine. That's the thing with the media. Instead of showing actual evidence, they just lied to the media, and the lie extended that to the surrounding area. The situation with Natalie Bollinger, the way that it played out, the way that I was forced into homelessness because of Natalie Bollinger's death, and then I was denied my rights as a human being because I was forced into homelessness. Forced into it. Now, their protocol in all of these cases is to play on the mentally ill tag. It's to not allow you your rights. Like the jails, for example. If you don't have any money for the phone, it doesn't matter if you have access to it. You don't have actual access to it. It's like if you live out in the country and you have permission to use a car that's out in the country, but there's no gas in the fucking car. Does that car do you any good? Do you actually have access to that car? Do you have money on your books for the phone? Now, the jails, even though Mandy Hughes put money on my books so I could use the phone, after over a month of incarceration, it still wasn't there. Matter of fact, it never showed up. Ever. Now, then there's people like, well, Shannon Alvarado. She wanted to be friends with Mandy Hughes, and she wanted to be friends with Mandy Hughes' daughter, Alyssa Rainwater, afterwards. And even though I had told her, hey, people put money on my books so that I could use the phone, and that money was denied. It wasn't until after they had already gotten everything that they wanted. They had already denied me the ability to speak to the people that I needed to speak to because I didn't have the money to call them. And that's when Alyssa Rainwater finally put money on my books. Her mother had already tried to put money on my books over a month earlier. And then they repeatedly assaulted me. They came to my cell and antagonized me. See, that's what happens when you try to tell on a bad cop, like Waylon Lolatai, who assaults you. They charge you with assaulting a police officer. And then they drop the charges because they don't want anybody to see the body cameras, because what they did to me was far worse than what they did to Zayd Atkinson. What they did to me was far worse than what they did to Michelle Rodriguez. What they did to me was far worse than what they did to Sammy Leon Lawrence IV. What they did to me was far worse than what they did to Michelle Clark. Sorry, Kelly Clark. But you also got to see the body camera evidence from all of those people, didn't you? You got to see it on the news, didn't you? But magically, where's mine? Magically, where is the body camera evidence from my cases? And then they have these things like, oh, well, you know, if you don't get that body camera evidence within a year, they get to destroy it. So all they have to do is press charges on you, and then they deny you the right to turn them in because they're not allowed while you've got charges against you. And I've recorded this stuff with these agencies, with these officers. Nationwide, it's this way, folks. You say it's wrong to treat a disabled person that way. It's wrong, man, that way. It's wrong to treat all these other people that way. Well, it's also wrong to treat me that way. Someone should have helped me to get those body cameras. Those people should not have been allowed to repeatedly press false charges against me, to paint me out as some sort of a villain to the American public, making me a victim of every goddamn wingnut in the fucking country. And yes, I get that not literally every wingnut in the country is after me, But look at the literally hundreds of threats against my life. The threats, harassment, and intimidation against my loved ones, against the people who tried to help me, from my little sister, Tara, to Candace Bondurant, and so many in between. So many of these people who promised to come forward, their excuse for not coming forward was that they were afraid of these predators, of what they had seen these predators do to others. And I say, come forward in court and speak up about it. Well, I don't know nothing, Sean. Really? Everything that you just told me is stuff that you know about? You're telling me that you saw these people threatening other people in these Facebook groups? I have screenshot after screenshot of these exact people that you're talking about that you said you saw threatening people in these groups. I have screenshots of them actually threatening these people in the groups, but I'm not heard because I'm called mentally ill. Meanwhile, when you got busted lying, you went to the cops, didn't you? Matter of fact, you literally went to my predators. The officers who threw out this, you were claiming that you were going to help me, that you were going to help me turn in these officers. But you weren't interested in helping me, were you, Mandy? Mandy Hughes. Holy shit. Now, one of their tactics is to press false charges against you, try to break your arm. That forces you into fight or flight. You're going to move. And then they pretend that you're resisting arrest or trying to assault them. Not fucking okay. Meanwhile, none of these tactics that they used against me because I was alone would have actually happened to me if I were not alone. Now let's take a few of these situations, case in point. When people would actually go with me, they would postpone court. The conversation with Steve Tomlinson shows that. Same thing with the situation with Graham. With Graham writing several statements, but me being told that, well, how do we know you didn't write that? How do we know you didn't write that? No matter what, there was some excuse why they couldn't do their jobs. But when someone went in with me, it was a different story. They at least pretended. These things are not specific to me. Most of us out on the streets are out here because we don't have a family. Those of you who have a family and a roof over your head and aren't constantly having to spend your money to move all the fucking time. You have a boyfriend or a girlfriend or a wife or a husband or somebody helping you to make ends meet. You can't possibly do it on your own unless you're getting paid more money than most of us are getting paid by a lot. Well, most of you guys are saying, that it's horrible. You can't survive on $49,000 a year or $44,000 a year or $86,000 a year. I got to try to survive on $10,000 a year. Well, you're telling me that I have privilege because I'm making $49,000 and that's $5,000 than the average woman makes. Well, I'm not making that much, am I? The abusive protocol that these people put you through when you try to tell on them is to cut you off from telling on them by whatever means necessary. If that means arresting you and denying your right to the phone calls that you are allowed to make, if that means arresting you and preventing you from going to your court dates, so your predators automatically win, and then every single court date that you get after that, they get to use that against you. You're not allowed to defend yourself against that. You were denied the right to go to court, and yes, that's against the fucking law, but who cares? I'm not black, so BLM doesn't give a fuck. I'm not female, so the gimme gimme movement doesn't give a fuck. I'm not blonde-haired and blue-eyed, so the Aryan Brotherhood and the KKK don't give a fuck. Now, with Rebecca and what she's had to go through, she's a female. You might actually give a shit. Now, some of you might say, oh, well, there's no way that she's got to deal with tweakers, or, she should just move. You know what? She's on foot. Okay? On foot. Getting out of Portland and trying to find an area where you can be safe, especially as a woman, and you're by yourself. Yeah, you're safer in public with the tweakers. But because at least you're in public. If somebody does something, there's at least possibly a witness. Yeah, sure, they'll probably just walk on by, even if you're getting fucking stabbed to death. But there's a possibility that they'll call 911 and the second responder, you're the first responder. You is the one with the telephone walking by seeing it. You are the first responder. Whoever you call is the second responder. Whether the police show up or the ambulance, they're the second response. You're the one who sees it. You need to stick around and tell what happened. But are you going to? Or are you going to say, oh, well, it's not my business. It's not my business. Imagine if the North, all them white folks up there, had taken a look at slavery and said, it's not my business. Do you know what would have happened? President Abraham Lincoln never would have become president. They specifically voted him in because he was trying to get rid of slavery. These were white people who voted for that. Now, I cannot take credit for those white people. I didn't vote for slavery or for the slaves to become human beings. I didn't vote for that. I wasn't alive to do so. I am not responsible for that vote. But at the same token, I'm also not responsible for any of this other shit. I'm not responsible for freeing the slaves. But I'm also not responsible for slavery itself. I have never owned a slave. I have never said that owning a slave is an okay thing to do. You guys can go right back to the very beginning. Before Natalie was ever killed, over a year before Natalie was ever killed, I was trying to get help, getting someone to go in with me to help stop the victimization, to help stop the stalking. Now, you can go through the situation with Natalie, and you can see she never, ever accused me of molesting her. She never accused me of raping her. Neither did her sister. At any point in time, you can see that her and her friends were stalking me. You can see that although when I made that 100-block walk, because Natalie wanted to meet me, she wanted to meet me in Boulder at the Starbucks, and I wanted to meet at the police station. When I made that 100-block walk, I let her know that I had walked over 60 blocks so that I could go meet her in Boulder where she wanted me to meet her. And on that walk, I walked all the way up Federal. That's the quickest route between Ken and Leah's on South Zuni, right next to Hampton, and Miss Peaches, who lived on 120th and Melody at the time. That was the quickest route. And I walked over 100 blocks. Now, what I had told her and what she was messaging to others shows. When she was saying that I walked over 100 blocks, obviously she was taking that from my Facebook. I was doing what she asked. I was making that trip to go see Natalie Bollinger at her request in Boulder, Colorado, at the Starbucks on University and Broadway, at her request. And because I had to go to Miss Peach's house, Miss Natalie wanted to later claim that I was stalking her by her house, that I was right next to her house. I was going to see Miss Peaches. because Natalie wanted to meet me. And then Natalie wanted to pretend that I was stalking her because I was doing the things that I needed in order to follow what it is that she wanted me to do or claimed that she wanted. I followed her instructions, and just like most of my history with Natalie Bollinger since the situation in Virginia, including in Virginia, I was asked to do something. I did what I was asked, and then they played predator when I did as I was asked. They played like I was some sort of a monster for doing as they asked. And I proved and showed time and again with actual evidence that I did as asked and was victimized for doing as asked by the cops, by the courts, by the jails, by the hospitals, and by Natalie Bollinger and her fucking friends. The first protocol when someone is being victimized who is disabled, the very first protocol should be someone going in with them. It should be someone there to look at the evidence and to help that victim safely make a report, especially if they are a male, especially if they are homeless. And for sure, goddamnedly, if their predator is an officer or a female. When your predator is a female, there's a 99.9999999% chance that she's not your only predator, because she is going to reach out for help, and she is far more likely to get it than you are. So the cops, when they abuse you, they'll take you to a hospital and tell the hospital that you're schizophrenic. From there on in, the hospital doesn't give a fuck what you have to say. They've only heard your officer. And I mean your officer, because in all of these cases, it was an officer I was trying to turn in. And instead of allowing me to turn in my predators, you have my predators be there? You have my predators take me to a hospital? You have my predators lie to said hospital? In Dual County alone, they did this no less than 7 times. All because I had to go in alone. And then you get to hear in my court date, the last one, the only one I was actually allowed to speak in, how the rules were different for me than they were for Leslie Snell. How my safety issues were not observed. They were completely ignored. How the conflict of interest between those judges and those officers and that county attorney, all of them had a conflict of interest before court. In all of these situations, I did voice that there was a conflict of interest. And in all of these situations, my public pretenders didn't give a fuck. They were not going to do their job because I didn't have a guardian there to make sure that my rights were actually observed. Every single court date, every single one. Now, my public pretenders in Chapel, Nebraska, my public pretender in Larimer County, Colorado, I couldn't call them from jail because, well, first of all, they don't have the right numbers to be called. You're supposed to be able to call your public pretender from jail. But if your public pretender is not a public pretender, because there's a situation like there was in Larimer County with them repeatedly telling me that it's not their job, repeatedly cutting me off from people who were there to actually observe it, to see that my rights were observed, to see to it that my public pretenders did do their fucking jobs. And then it wasn't even my public pretenders. In one of those cases in Larimer County, I went in with Graham. It was a no call, no show, the third one from that particular public pretender. And I showed up, and it's expensive to travel all that way from Nebraska down to fucking Larimer and then back. And Graham was a witness, and he actually wrote it down. He actually did write it down. He is an actual witness to that. When there was an actual witness there, they would always postpone court continually over and over again. With my public pretenders, with them not willing to look at their jobs, look at the information, or get the evidence, after 30 days, they're not allowed to ask for the evidence. It's called discovery. And no matter what, they wouldn't do that. They would not get that evidence. They kept on telling me, hey, well, we're not allowed to show anything that the cops didn't collect. I'm literally trying to turn in the cops that you allowed to collect this evidence knowing that there was a conflict of interest. Yeah, there's going to be an issue there. These protocols, they're repeatedly arresting me, repeatedly locking me up in mental hospitals, repeatedly over and over and over again, repeatedly shipping me to another jurisdiction so I can't turn them in, repeatedly taking away my telephone and access to my telephone numbers, repeatedly denying me access to 911. And this is standard procedure. Standard procedure. Doesn't matter that it's against the law. I tell people what I've gone through, and they go, oh man, that's against the law. They can't do that. Yes, they can. They did. Something being against the law doesn't bar somebody from doing it. If you make it against the law for somebody to have diarrhea, if they get diarrhea, they still got diarrhea. If you make it against the law for somebody to steal a candy bar, and it is already illegal to steal a candy bar, mind you, if they don't get busted, no crime. That's simple. They're not going to jail. They didn't get busted. If you look the other way while they steal the candy bar, you're an accessory. But then again, you say, well, I didn't see anything. Why? Because you looked away. We need to do something about this. I'm tired of my friends becoming corpses. I'm tired of these guys pretending that because I'm homeless, that must mean that I'm going to run. No, absolutely not. I'm trying to actually be allowed to fight my fight. If my predators are allowed to take me to court, but I'm not allowed to take them to court, if they're allowed to actually lie on paperwork and have me incarcerated over those lies and literally physically tortured over those lies, how is that okay? And how is it that I had to turn in those things to Scott DaCosta, only to later find out that I shouldn't have turned them into Scott DaCosta? DaCosta knew that he's not the one I had to turn those into, and he should have told me that. And Joan Hanson should have told me that. Now, those of you who listened to Joan Hanson the last time I spoke with her, where she says, oh, well, I'm telling you now. Well, yeah, you're telling me now. You're telling me after the fact. After protocol has already been breached, and it has already resulted in my predators repeatedly being allowed to have access to me. My predators have guns, actual firearms, loaded with actual bullets that they have literally trained to kill people with. Yes, it needs to be taken seriously. William Barr murdered people in foreign countries. He has been trained to kill people. Scott DaCosta and all of his deputies have been trained to kill people. Leslie Snell has guns in her house. Ted Bollinger, even being a multiple-time felon, was busted with an illegal firearm after his daughter was killed. Meanwhile, my predators get to abuse protocol because I'm alone. I need someone to stick with me, not somebody who's going to be a weekend warrior until it interferes with their video gaming or interferes with watching Game of Thrones, or they're pissed off because sticking my hand on their boob is not okay. I don't owe you sex. And I don't understand how you think that sex is going to fix any of my problems. This shit's nuttier than fucking squirrel turds. Happy goddamn Christmas. Someone typed calling themselves thank you next. Typed, I'm sorry that happened to you. I watched it all play out, Sean. Well, thank you next. It would be nice if we knew your real name and if you'd speak up about it. If you'd speak up on your channel. If you'd try to contact the news and explain that you saw it play out. If you could explain these things to these people and actually pressure them, work together with others to actually help the actual victims. There's a woman, her name is Chloe Roma, and she's got her own site. It's called Roma Army, and it's about men's rights. And she was raped. When she was raped, she was talking about how, talking about this stuff, generalizing is all fine and dandy, but her rapist is getting away. We need to help out the victims themselves with their individual cases instead of just generalizing that it sucks and it's bad. When she was raped, she needed help. For me, it's not any different except that I'm a man. I'm less likely to be heard. Now, she was treated like shit by feminists after she was raped. They treated her like shit. Feminists treated a female who was raped like shit for being raped and for speaking out because she fought for men's rights. Imagine how it is when you're actually a man. I didn't need people to generalize that things are bad, okay? I needed them to actually speak out about what they knew. I needed them to speak out about what they were seeing in these groups. They were spreading this slander that I have repeatedly been harmed over. I've shown time and again that the shit that Rob Gavigan put up was bullshit. I've shown time and again that the shit put up by Sword and Scale, episodes 109 and 110, is bullshit. I've shown time and again that the people that Mike Boudet tried to paint out as being the good guys, like Tim Beeson, were the bad guys. I have shown this time and again. Tim Beeson was Natalie Bollinger's predator. Ted Bollinger, that's Natalie's own father, was her predator. Rebecca's dealing with the same bullshit. People have done horrible things to her in her life. And I'm not going to pretend like she didn't feed us in Boulder. She did feed us in Boulder. And that should lend ear to the people who want to call her a liar or pretend that she's schizophrenic for saying she fed us in Boulder, because she did. Anybody who wants to treat her like she's making it up or being schizophrenic because she's surrounded by tweakers in Portland. I was there. I went to see her. Yes, she is surrounded by tweakers. No, she doesn't have a safe place to go. That's the most important thing. That's why homeless are so easy to victimize. No safe place to go. No place to go work on this stuff. You can sit down in your own house with your own internet access. And if you need to, spend 8 hours straight making phone calls, recording phone calls, calling the places that you need to call. But when you're in somebody else's environment, you can only make those calls when they say it's okay. When you're in public, like at Starbucks, most of those calls you can't make. You can't talk to somebody on the phone about rape or murder in Starbucks. They'll call the cops on you. They don't know that it's an officer that you're talking to on the phone. Case in point, one of the Starbucks in Cheyenne, Wyoming. I'm going to end this video. I'm hot, I'm exhausted, I'm overwhelmed. The thing is that the protocol of the public pretenders, the protocol of the hospitals, the protocol of the police, the protocol of the courts, the protocol of the jails, they all deny you the rights that you're supposed to be allowed by the Constitution if you're homeless, if you're broke,